Today, we're speaking with Misha Zehra Abbas, a multidisciplinary artist and designer with Pakistani, Saudi Arabian, and Iranian roots. She draws work from historical and political research and cultural practices of South Asia, Southwest Asia, and North Africa, SWANA. She makes clothes, painting, and textiles, interweaving her lived experience, familial narratives, and histories of SWANA land, labor, struggle, and love. She gathers stories, materials, and sounds in her process. She writes and performs as reclamation and liberation from colonial constraints. Abbas was a Creative Dissent Fellow at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, training under the one and only Tania Bruguera. She has exhibited at the Minnesota Street Project, SOMArts, Mission Cultural Center for Latino Arts, and has performed in Alterations at the Suzanne Lacy retrospective, We Are Here at SFMOMA. Misha, thank you so much for speaking with us. It's such an honor to have you participating in Zamin project.
For having me.
You're speaking with us from your home in Pakistan. How has that been for you in the last year? I understand that you left just before COVID bulldozed over the world. Is that right?
I left during. During. It was a big move. But it's been really lovely being back home. It's been a long time, and yeah, I appreciate being here greatly.
So as a Zamin project participant, you know that we're talking about SWANA and it's how that manifests as community in the Bay Area. And so the first question I'll ask is, what ties to the Bay Area SWANA community did you have? Like, was it school or family, or like what brought you to this part of the world?
So I left Saudi and moved to the Bay Area. The first place I lived in the US was Oakland.
Yeah.
And that was really extraordinary. Yeah. It was, Oakland is a really special place. And so I came for school. I went to the California College of the Arts. I studied fashion design and community arts, and largely, I think I met a lot of SWANA artists over there, but I think my community kind of slowly developed. Mm-hmm. And it was through, I started doing political organizing with the Arab Resource and Organizing Center.
Yeah.
It's based in San Francisco. So I lived in Oakland for a year, then I moved to San Francisco, and I started meeting people at like social gatherings. It wasn't just based at school. It was more, I think, the work that we were doing outside of school.
Yeah.
Art galleries, some political education meetings.
Yeah.
Different forms of of protest, of performance, and I think that's when I was just like, I found people that I got along with, people that shared politics, shared values, and that was really important for me.
Yeah.
And I started having them over for dinner, and that really became it became a crux, I think, for a lot of great conversations, a lot of really great gatherings, and I'm very grateful for that experience.
Oh, wow. So you're a CCA alumna as I am. What was your experience of CCA and sort of coming into it as someone who didn't grow up in the West, has influences that are wide ranging, what was that academic experience like for you?
Grueling.
Yeah.
I was the only one I knew who was doing a dual degree, and I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
My community arts degree was very, very different than my fashion design degree, but they were both important in terms of skill building and getting a full-fledged education that I felt like I needed in order to grow my practice.
Yeah.
And The community arts side was more theoretical research, political framing, community oriented.
Yeah.
And then the fashion design side was a lot of like really just on hand making.
Yeah.
And I kept continuously trying to weave and bridge those two worlds together. And I think that's still a large part of my practice.
Yeah.
As I'm expanding, making projects and expanding into mediums. I didn't get to paint as much in school. I'm doing more paintings now. But it was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of just like living at school, but really, really amazing.
Oh, wow. I'm glad that you sort of elegantly led into that. I was curious if the design practice and the community arts practice, like if they overlapped, how that happened, or if it didn't happen at CCA, as you move forward with your various artistic practices, like how you would like to see them overlap.
So I'm still defining that. You know, I once I got out of school, it was largely like, how am I moving forward now? And I think I'm still figuring that out. But a lot of my growth, I think, has happened while I've been home.
Yeah.
And having more space to make work, but also for me, I use community art, social practice as an underlying framework. In my work now. I think because a lot of like the paintings I'm working on, the clothing that I'm making, it's coming from like familial narratives and historical and sort of historical clothing from the SWANA region, specifically Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Iran. But it's also coming from clothing that my friends wear, conversations I'm having with them, oral histories of also their family members, and also recognizing that we are in this shared struggle right now. We're in this time where we're all making work that sort of that connects to each other, and kind of also like frames each other in a way that's really beautiful. And I think we have investment and excitement for each other's work. But that's where the social practice framework comes in. It's the stories that I'm gathering, it's the materials that I'm gathering. And I did at one point primarily identify as a social practice artist, and that shifted, and it shifted because I wanted to define a practice that wasn't just entirely pinned in one framework, and gave room for intersectionality. I hope that answers your question.
It does. No, it answers it beautifully. As you were describing it, I was thinking, as a designer, if there's a person or an idea of a person or people for whom you design clothing, but it's, and I could be wrong, it sounds like though that it's not like a particular person or a demographic in particular that you are working not for, but designing for, perhaps. You have a much broader base, so to speak, or demographic. And
yes, definitely.
Historically influenced. It's historically influenced. It is shaped as well by contemporary just moments that we're living through. So I love the idea that there is an aspect of almost timelessness. Like someone could wear your work, what you've designed, and it would not necessarily be specific to 2021. It could be something that pulls in historical, has those contemporaneous aspects to it as well, but it's somehow bigger than that. And that's I mean, and I love that, because clothing it's basic, it's essential to who we are, and that there are people who are wearing your work out in the world. I mean, that's something powerful that goes like well beyond you as an artist and a designer.
Thank you. That's really wonderful to hear. I think that's my hope. I'm making clothing that's for my own, that's leading, like currently I'm working on a project called Ramon and pomegranates.
Yeah.
And I'm making clothing, and it's going to, I think, lead up to a performance piece. And, you know, recognizing that a lot of the clothes that I actually end up making, I end up giving away to other performance artists or artists. And I like kind of that aspect of handing things down. That definitely stems from family. But also I think it changes like how it moves in the world. And I believe that clothing also gathers stories. I think that there are stories embedded in clothing. Absolutely. I also do a lot of natural dyeing from turmeric, from land, from soil, and I like that materiality aspect of it as well.
That's I could ask so many questions about that by itself. You mentioned painting as well, something you've been doing more of since you returned to Pakistan. If you feel like talking about it, what have you been painting, or like what's sort of challenging you or keeping you interested in that media at this moment?
Yeah, I'm doing it's more my fun side, I think. I'm having fun with it. There's been a new emergence in stylization around my work, and I think that's been really exciting for me. I've been making a lot of I like fruit and vegetables like chili peppers, mangoes, and dates and palm trees, and you know, like nature. But also with and again, that signifies so much. The mango in Pakistan is significant. Like all my life, my parents would be like, Pakistan has the best mangoes. There's no questions. Pakistan has the best mangoes. And I also had a 50-year-old mango tree that I used to pick mangoes from over the summer. And just kind of those, and their subtleties, they're more personal subtleties that I'm hoping, I think, resonate with other people. I think the pomegranate specifically is so funny because I feel like there's something about the pomegranate that just is across the SOMArts region. That and you know, with even the diaspora, where everybody's like, pomegranate is significant. And I think that's what kind of drew me. There's just a specialness for me in drawing symbolisms and metaphors, and my paintings. I'm also working with trying to incorporate different materiality into my paintings. So I'm working with coal, and I'm working with rose water and hairspray, and that's been fun. It's been fun, and so those are, and a lot of that came from, I think, my textile education as well. I worked a lot with botanicals and natural dyeing within CCA as well. And that has, that's definitely like seeping through into how I'm exploring other materials as well. And that those underpinnings and those understandings they're emerging with different narratives. Like all the materials I'm working with have different meanings for me, have moments of nostalgia, have moments of just of connecting to even things around my family and family members that have passed. And you know, it's significant. I think those that's why it's so exciting to be making art for me right now, is because I get to sit in all of that.
It's such a potent moment that you're in, and as someone who just loves looking and experiencing the work, you know, when you're ready to, if you reach a point where you're ready to share it with the rest of us, like, we'll be watching. And what comes of this very rich moment in your life, I imagine, will be just amazing. So, and as a future audience member, it gives us a lot to look forward to, which is lovely and generous of you. Thank you. So as one of the motivating questions for the Zamin project is resources. And that is something that can, it activates a whole host of thoughts and it has different definitions. But I'm curious what that means for you. And that could be anything. It could be community, it could be family, it could be whatever that is. But I'm curious, like what does resources, what does that mean to you exactly?
So I think for me, it's stories.
Yeah.
I think whenever I talk to my friends and if they're not doing anything interesting, I'm like, please tell me a story. Tell me a story that is going to entertain me in this moment. And yeah. I think all my friends will attest to this. But I think, in terms of like tangible resources, there's providing food to your community. There's providing like the AROC, the Resource and Organizing Center, provides legal services, provides safe space. And those are more tangible things, and other less tangible things, I think, is the storytelling, is kind of the support system that's there within, because I think that's what was really the really beautiful part about building community within the Bay Area, was that we were each other's support systems. And that looks like a lot of different things. It looks like giving critique on your work, or giving like a thumbs up on your work. And all of it was really necessary. Especially the current, and for the last couple of years, the current political space that we've been in. I think that's partially why it was also really significant.
Absolutely. Did you find yourself looking more at our peers, just for feedback? Because I'm curious. Doesn't sound like there were a lot of other SWANA students at CCA when you and Shag were there. That's certainly the case when I was a student there, more than 10 years ago at this point. But did you find that it was just a really sort of valuable, it sounds like it was a really valuable feedback opportunity for someone who has some understanding, some connection, if not immediately, at least some general understanding of SWANA culture when looking at your work, as opposed to someone in a critique situation who didn't have that knowledge? I imagine that was a really powerful opportunity.
I think, so I was the only SWANA student in the fashion design program, and I think the community arts program. So Shogai was in the social practice MFA, and the community arts program was there was definitely a connection between both programs, but it was still a separate program. I think within the community arts context, I had a lot of understanding and support around my work. And with fashion, I think there was, I had support around my work, but I think I had to kind of really break down things, which was helpful in terms of in terms of like recognizing that not always my audience isn't going to always understand what I'm trying to communicate to them. And specifically with the kinds of research and theoretical work and what I'm trying to convey. I think that's my hope. I hope that whoever looks at my work does find some kind of pleasure or connection to it, no matter their background. But within fashion, I think I definitely was able to understand that not everybody knows what a Seikaly is, or what an abaya function is. Or what what the Palestinian kafia is, just or the significance of that, or why we have so many in Pakistan textiles and patterns are so important. So That was a lot of my work was like making connection. Well, it was hard to be like, I'm making connections between all these things, and I'm trying to present this as my work and my cultures, and without sitting in the stereotype, without like furthering the stereotype. And so, and I think large parts of it also in the program were like, no, Urdu and Arabic are different.
Yeah.
But again, I had a professor who was a SWANA designer. And it was really amazing to be able to work with Ghazali Khalifa. And I had some great professors. I think I'm really grateful for what I did receive, and I'm excited to build on that.
Yeah, that's absolutely thrilling. And you'd mentioned sort of the graduate school was something you're thinking about, and not to get too far into that because it sounds like it's early in that process, but that's going to be another very like just potent moment, I imagine, in your life, in your creative practice. So that's going to be whenever that happens, it's going to be really exciting. It's got a lot of work, but it's going to be really.
I know, but honestly, I do miss the grilling nights. I'm trying. It's not the healthiest thing, but I do miss it. I think that's the problem with most designers.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for just spending the time with me, with us, Zamin project. The last question I have for you is, what are you thinking about right now?
Thinking about the books I'm reading.
Yeah. What are you reading?
I am reading Gender and Inequality, or Feminisms, Gender and Inequality in the Middle East. It was written around 10 years ago, but most of it, and it's a series of articles, and it's one of the most beautiful books I think I've ever read. And it touches on Islamic feminism. It touches on, it also touches on like whether Westernization is also a form of intellectual colonialism. And so there's like things that you're like,
question. Wow, that is a great.
I don't know. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
But it is so much. A lot of my work, I think, is also diving into women within Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Iran, and what that means, and what their lives are like, and how they intersect and connect to mine. And I think I'm still unpacking that, but this book is in terms of a theoretical framework, it's significant. So that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Thank you for that. I have that book actually on my shelf, and I've been, like everything else, meaning to read it. This gives me the push to find it and be like,
okay, yes, read it so we can talk about it.
For no other reason than that.
That sounds great.
Well, thank you so much for this, and to all of our audiences, thank you for watching, and meet us here next time for the next video.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Bye.